Why are character archetypes useful? Because you write in your book about the nemesis and trickster, and there's five main archetypes. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so yeah, um, I mean, there's a narrative archetype. That's what Joseph Campbell is talking about, the hero's journey. I call the psychologically based version of that the unity arc, which we see over and over again, which is where a
Yeah,
character starts in a state of disunity, and
yeah,
through their transformation process over the plot, they discover things about themselves,
yeah,
and that empowers them to become a new person moving toward
yeah,
unity. So that's the narrative arc. There are other narrative archetypes, but that's the most common one. Along the way, they will discover what I call the family of characters. And we see these five narrative dynamics over and over and over again in stories. So that's where I zeroed in on character archetypes. There's that forward moving energy where a character is moving toward a goal, and that's what we call it the protagonist.
yeah,
Well, you can't have drama without conflict. The best way to have conflict is have someone opposing the
yeah,
protagonist, right? And so we call that I call it the nemesis. Some people call it the antagonist. I prefer nemesis. So you've got that creative dynamism there, that dynamic, protagonist versus nemesis. And that doesn't have to be just like, Darth Vader. It can be, it's all scalable, depending
yeah,
upon what type of story it is. It can be a psychological condition the character has. It can be a geographical constraint. So it can be a series of characters that provide opposition. But that opposition is great because it gives you conflict, and that opposition also forces the protagonist to go inside and discover really what's at the core of their being. Along the way, they will generally meet allies in the form of characters who are most connected to their emotional development, and I call that the attractor character. That's often a romance figure, but not necessarily. And then they'll meet characters who are more involved with the intellectual insights that the protagonist needs to learn, and that's a mentor figure. Sometimes they're false attractors and false mentors, but typically they are allies in
yeah,
that process. And so, where the protagonist nemesis relationship is an existential uh, connection, like asking the question, "Who am I?" Stories are about self-identity fundamentally,
yeah,
and the protagonist is forced to address the question, "Who am I?" And the nemesis is really zeroes in on that. But the attractor and mentor figure asks the question, "How am I?" It's like, how am I going to behave? What are my belief systems? How are they going to change? How is my behavior is going to change? And then there's a fifth character who is very common in indigenous cultures and has been around for, again, eons and generations. The trickster character. There's all sorts of literature written on trickster characters. They, in my view, the way to think about them in terms of screenwriting and storytelling, they're shapeshifters.
yeah,
They shift from ally to enemy, enemy to ally. They have their own agenda, but they provide these tests along the way that help prepare the protagonist for the big final struggle at the end. And so they basically deepen the protagonist's experience going inside themselves, taking what they've learned and moving themselves forward in the transformation process. And so you've got these five characters that these types, these archetypes, we see again over and over again. And in my book, as you know, I explore that with countless, well, not countless, but a lot
yeah.
of
There's
different
countless. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, it's
movies
so good.
and
Yeah,
stories. In TV, it's interesting because if you're a writer in TV, you can explore a character as they go through various
yeah,
stages of development. Season one, they can be a mentor figure. Season two, they can be a trickster figure. Season three, they can be a nemesis figure. That's exactly
yeah.
the arc that Nate takes in Ted Lasso,
Right.
season one, two,
Yeah.
three.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're very helpful tools. Not
Yeah.
rules, tools. There's
Yeah.
no reason that you have to say this has to be this way.
Yeah.
They're just helpful tools in understanding characters.
Yeah. And I love in your book, the protagonist's journey. You is it Toto the dog? You call him a trickster. character.
Oh yeah,
How did you
yeah.
come up with that? Is that because it's some people I think see the dog running out of the basket in The Wizard of Oz as the inciting incident, but it's I guess
Oh,
it's the tornado. But then you give the dog an archetype, which is the trickster. Is that
so it even begins before that.
right?
When we first meet Dorothy, she's racing down the road with Toto. Toto has
Yeah,
been digging in Miss Gulch's garden,
yeah,
and so that's that at that moment when Toto is doing that, because it creates the circumstance where Emma Gulch comes and is going to take the dog and disrupt Dorothy's life. The dog is acting as an enemy to
right.
Dorothy.
Yeah,
The dog is acting out of not in alignment with what Dorothy really needs, which is
right.
Toto is Dorothy's only friend.
Yeah,
That's a part of the problem at the beginning of the story. Is there are all these adults on the farm? She can't really connect with them. They keep saying, "Dorothy, you're getting in the way. Stay
yeah,
over here."
yeah.
Toto is her friend. So Toto initiates the whole Emma Gulch thing, and then you're right. When Emma Gulch takes Toto, Toto jumps out of the
Yeah,
basket, which precipitates Dorothy then running away,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah,
that precipitates meeting Dr. Morrow. And because of that, she ends up late, doesn't get into the storm cellar, gets hit on the head, and off she goes to Oz. In Oz, the dog is an ally in the respect that it escapes from the Wicked Witch's castle, goes and finds her three buddies, her three attractor characters,
yeah,
Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Cowardly Lion, brings them back. So that's acting like an ally, right?
yeah, yeah.
Also, the dog's the one who pulls the curtain back to
Right.
reveal,
Yeah.
right, the Wizard of Oz. That's a
Yeah,
tricky
exactly. Yeah.
thing. And then at the very end, she's in the balloon
He
and going
jumps
to be
out again.
taken back to Kansas when the dog jumps out after a
Yeah.
cat. That's an
Yeah.
enemy in that
Yeah.
moment, right? So you see the
Yeah.
dog as a shapeshifter. It's a tricky,
Yeah.
it's slippery
Yeah.
little fella, and so that's why I saw him a trickster. Of course, Professor Marvel is absolutely a trickster as the
Right.
Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz. So you got two
Yeah.
tricksters in the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. So it's funny, isn't it? How you can know a film, but no matter how many times you watch something, you see you see it in a different way, And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's the best films I think can do that.